At this time, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our keynote speaker. As I previously mentioned, we are very fortunate to enjoy a healthy business climate here in Georgetown. And one way that we can maintain that healthy climate is to educate ourselves. And so our speaker today is going to do that for us. Bryan Daniel with the Texas Workforce Commission is here to discuss workforce trends and job growth in our area and throughout the state. So I have a written, kind of boring bio of Bryan that I just pulled from the internet because I had not met him until today. However, as I got to chat with him a little bit beforehand, I was expecting to meet kind of a maybe a stodgy politician, and he is not that. So I think that we are in for a treat with this presentation. So. Bryan, I believe I've heard that you hail from the independent nation of West Churchill Farms, is that correct? So he is a Georgetown native. Apparently they're working on a flag and their own independent currency. So, Bryan gives another funny tidbit. When we were talking before the event. So Bryan, in his role as at the Texas Workforce Commission, gives workforce advice to about 28 million Texans, so a lot of people. But he was discussing that his own two daughters, who are just getting out of college and looking for internships and job opportunities, refuse to listen to the advice that he has to give, and I thought that was really funny. Bryan is the chairman and commissioner representing the public for the Texas Workforce Commission. So he was appointed to that commission by Greg Abbott in 2019. He serves as the representative for the public, promoting and supporting the growth of Texas' world-class employers and talented workforce. Chairman Daniel is a graduate of Texas Tech University. He holds a Bachelor of Science. All right, I'll let y'all clap for that. With a Bachelor of Science in Agricultural Communications and a Master of Science in Agricultural Education. Please help me in welcoming Chairman Bryan Daniel to the stage.
That space was made for her. Not for me. Oh man, what a great, stodgy. I've never actually been described as stodgy. We're going to come back to that. So we're here on this beautiful property, and when I'm driving up, it reminds me, I started off my career and really my life as an ag guy. You know, I really got out of college and wanted to make my way in the agriculture world, and I did for a long time. And I ended up, how I got here was an interest in rural economic development. And so when I'm pulling up to the ranch today, it reminded me of a turning point in my career. So I'm way off script here. We'll just start off script because it's easier that way. Oh, we gotta do Raider Power here in a little bit. We'll do that too. I'm pulling up, it reminded me of a turning point in my career. It was the first time, so I was an appointee in the Bush administration I was the state director for rural economic development. They had us on the rubber chicken circuit, not like today. This chicken was good, I think. I haven't eaten yet, but it looked delicious. It smells good. And they had us on the rubber chicken circuit. We were all out there speaking, and I had a good speech. Like I knew it in my heart. It was good. It was good. The crowd would engage with me, and people had a lot to say. And you go to a rural area, you know, they're glad to see somebody. So they'll come out and engage with you. And I gave a speech in a rural town. I won't say which one. I don't want to give it away. But I gave a speech in a rural town. And after the speech, a woman, she waited patiently to speak to me. And this was pretty cool. This didn't always happen. And I knew she was going to congratulate me on a speech well given. And she was going to tell me how much she really enjoyed the things that I said. And so there were some people in front of her, and I talked to them, and then she came up, and she didn't even say, "Hello, my name is." She said, "Let me tell you something." And I've learned in life, when someone says, "Let me tell you something," they're about to. She said, "Are you from the government?" I said, "Yeah." I mean, they'd already introduced me. It was out of the bag, right? "Yeah, I'm from the government." She says, "You think you know a lot of stuff, don't you?" I mean, I don't think I know a lot of stuff. I know a lot of stuff. Then out loud I said, She said, let me tell you a story. She says, I'm going to tell you a story, and I want you to remember this always. I said, okay. She said, picture with me a rancher, and he's working. And he's moving his sheep from one pasture to another. Okay? But he has to move his sheep across a farm-to-market road. It's got a gate on this side, there's a gate on that side, so he's just going to move his sheep across the road. And he's got his entire flock of sheep out the one gate on the farm-to-market road. He's getting ready to move them to the other gate, to the other pasture. From out of nowhere, a dark Suburban with tinted windows pulls up in a screeching halt, a cloud of white dust from the Caliche Road. The guy gets out and walks straight up to the rancher. He says, I bet I can tell you how many sheep are in your flock. Rancher says, all right. He says, but if I do, you got to give me one of the sheep. Rancher says, okay, go ahead. So the guy goes back to the Suburban, and he opens the back, and he pulls out a computer, supercomputer, and he puts a satellite dish up on top. This song's from this is from the 90s. He's got a satellite dish up on top. He's got his BlackBerry in his hand. I threw that in there for you. And he's working, and it's communicating the computer, and a sheet of paper comes out. Not copy paper, but the good paper with the tractor feed. And he takes that out of there, and he looks at it, and he says, you have 1,234 sheep in your flock. And the rancher says, that's amazing. I do. I have 1,234 sheep in my flock. He says, go ahead and get your sheep. We made a deal. So the guy walks over, selects his animal, picks it up. He's walking back to the Suburban with it. The rancher says, hey, tell you what, I make a deal with you. Guy says, what? He says, if I tell you what you do for a living, you give me my sheep back. Guy says, all right, sure. Rancher says, you work for the government. Guy says, how'd you know? He says, you showed up here uninvited. You told me the answer to a question that I already knew the answer to, and then you taxed me to do it. Guy says, well, it is true. I work for the government. Rancher said, good. Now, can I have my border collie back? I see, a story like that sticks with you, but what happened next even more so. She didn't even say that was a great story. She just turned around and walked away and left me with that. And I've been self-conscious about it ever since. I am with the government. She left out the best part of the introduction. I told her before we started, she says, how do you define your job? I said, I know about workforce and stuff like that. I am with the government, but we measure these things. They're important. They're important to communities like this one. It's important that we get together like that. I think the number one thing the pandemic did to us is it really made it where we couldn't get together and exchange ideas. See, the idea exchange is where it all happens, right? It's not me showing up uninvited and taxing you to do it. It's when we get together and talk about the things that are working. All the businesses that are represented here today, everyone's stronger because we have a chance to get together and do that. And the pandemic put a lot bigger interruption on that than you think it did. I mean, we moved everything virtually, and it was okay. I mean, Zoom was kind of a cool tool. Teams, what's the other one? What happened to that one, Skype? I never hear about that anymore. But all of those, they were good ones. Teams is kind of the one I pick on the most. Teams calls have gotten out of control, and Teams is stressful for me. Teams is stressful for me, or Zoom is stressful for me because there's too many choices. You got to have picture day hair. You got to have Hollywood-style makeup. You got to have lighting. Wardrobe selections are hard for me. I mean, yes, I get blazer, nice shirt, but like what color shorts go with that? Flip-flops? No flip-flops. Chances are, if you've done a Zoom call with me and you can detect that I'm at my home, I didn't have shoes on. There's no possible way I had shoes on. And this kind of stress got on all of us, but we got used to it. We started liking it. And we're too comfortable with Zoom now. You get on those Zoom calls and you tell me I'm wrong about that. We've gotten very comfortable with that. But it was a necessary tool. We really didn't have a choice. We really didn't have a way to continue to work with each other through that period of the pandemic when they were basically cautioning everybody to stay at home and do different things. And I think a lot of companies made decisions that they had to make. Nobody's going to second guess that now. They took these tools and decided they were better. All the while, see, we're so far past all this now. All the while, things were happening in the economy that we really couldn't measure. Now, the official economic term for that is economic tilt-a-whirl. You won't find that in any books or anything. So we're charting new ground here today. It's economic tilt-a-whirl. You ever been on the tilt-a-whirl at the carnival? How's the tilt-a-whirl go? Ma'am, you've been on the tilt-a-whirl. Goes around in a circle, all right? Goes up and down. All the while, you're spinning as fast as you can. That's economic tilt-a-whirl. The economy, round and round, up and down, spinning, out of control. We didn't know where it was going to end. Now think about it from an employment standpoint in this state. We dropped almost 1 million jobs in like 3 months. All right? We set a record in February of 2020 for the most number of Texans working for wages in the state. So we call those payroll jobs. So the most number of payroll jobs in the state, we had set a record in February 2020. About 15 days later, we marked the start of the pandemics. We start those on March 14, 2020. About 30 days after March 14, 2020, we were seeing unemployment levels 7 times what we would see in a typical year. Now, before it's all said and done, let's just cut to the chase. Before it was all said and done, we had 9 million claims for unemployment benefits in this state. That's about 4.5 million Texans, and that represents about $55 billion, that's with a B, $55 billion in benefits paid. Now, if that's not an economic tilt-a-whirl, I don't know what is. Now, here's what's happening at TWC while all that's going on. All right? We're getting 3,000 phone calls every 60 seconds. Our operators are on duty. There's one of them right now. Tell them I'm with people. I'll call them back in just a second. Our operators are standing by. Our operators are open 7 to 7, 7 days a week. All right, 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's 84 hours a week for every operator. 3,000 phone calls a minute. It would take just over 40,000 operators to take that volume of calls. I don't have 40,000 operators. I actually had 600. Now, we ended up with 5,000, okay? You can hire people on a part-time basis. You still can't get to 3,000 phone calls every 60 seconds. That's 16 million phone calls a week. That's a lot of phone calls. Now, we take about 5% of our unemployment benefits on the phone, the applications. 16 million phone calls for 5% of the applications. That means the other ones are coming in online. All right? That system works pretty well. Anybody here born after 1992? I know. Anybody here born after 1992? Anybody else going to admit it? There's another one. There's one. There's one. Our mainframe computer, here we'll do a quick check, that I call Whopper. Yeah, y'all were born in the 70s too. Was put together in 1992. It's built on the back of a banking software. Now, Whopper just works. It just sits in a room and it just works. Like, shall we play a game? Not that, but we're getting that part. Whopper has to take an hour off every day. We didn't know this. We were trying to work Whopper 24 hours a day because we had a lot going on. 9 million claims and all. We had Whopper working 24 hours, and Whopper kept getting real confused in the mornings, which I get. You work all night. Morning's not welcome. What we figured out is because Whopper was built in the late 80s, early 90s on the back of a banking software, we weren't giving Whopper time to tally up the 2 columns. And if they didn't equal each other, Whopper just wouldn't work. Like the thing had to balance at the end of the day. So we would let Whopper have off from 4 to 5 each morning, and then just computing, the whole time computing. Now in front of Whopper is a whole lot of cloud computing and some stuff like that, all right? I'm telling you all this for a reason. 95% of 9 million claims got taken by Whopper and all of its supporting cast. But what wasn't getting talked about is this. So we're going to talk about it today. 60 days after March 14th, we began the economic recovery for Texas from COVID. Economic recovery. I'm not talking about psychological, I'm not talking about medical, I'm not talking about emotional, economic. So you measure recovery based on the period when the thing you're measuring starts back up. For me, it's net jobs in the state of Texas. We started adding those back in the summer of 2020 when a lot of the rest of the world was still trying to figure out what they were going to do about things. And we were just like trying to keep up with job creation. We're still paying out massive unemployment benefits. That went on for almost 10 months. This economic tilt-a-whirl never seemed like it was going to end. And then one day, things just kind of cleared up a little bit. Now, we have a list in my office of banned words. Banned words that we try not to use these words. Unprecedented is one of the banned words. I mean, you knew what I was going to say. Unprecedented. It is precedented. The 1918 flu epidemic happened. It's history. And so it is precedented, but it doesn't offer us any clues. Another banned word in the office is new normal. Now, I'm going to tell you why we have to ban a word like new normal. There was no old normal. If new normal is we're going to continue to create jobs at a faster pace than we did before the pandemic, then I'll take the new normal, if that's new normal. But there really wasn't an old normal. You see, the economy operates on a continuum, and it doesn't operate in a vacuum. A continuum requires constant movement, so it moves back and forth along its axis. Actually, it moves up and down along its axis all the time. An economy is either contracting or expanding. If an economy is not doing anything, it's dead. Y'all are in the chamber. That's bad. If an economy is contracting, it means there's an opportunity for expansion. And if an economy is expanding, it means you should be on the lookout for a contraction. So we're looking for any sign of life. We're watching it slide down, then all of a sudden we watch it start sliding up again. And we realize the new normal is upon us, and it's unprecedented. Now, you know how I feel about Zoom. Zoom's one of the new tools that we got. We got a lot of new tools as a result of the pandemic. We got new tools because we had to develop new tactics to deal with what we were seeing in the economy. And new tools and new tactics always give rise to new terms. Okay? I'm an ag guy. When I hear a term like AI, that means a thing. It took me a long time to figure out that they were talking about artificial intelligence, and made a lot more sense to me than it did before. They talked about the cloud, and we could use some. It's dry. We need rain. And then I realized that's a different thing. So the AI, the artificial intelligence, and the cloud computing are two terms that we've had to get real comfortable with because they represent some very real tools that we're going to use to implement some tactics. AI can be scary. It's like computers and stuff like that. And they do incredible things because they're like in the cloud. We have AI at the Workforce Commission. We get 95% of our claims online, and so we decided people might want to get questions answered online. They might not need to call 16 million times a week, that they might just want to go online and get the answer to the question. So we invented a chat bot. His name's Larry. Larry the chatbot answers questions. The day Larry went live, he answered 100 questions. Does everybody know what a chatbot is? Do you like those on websites? Me either. And so it's one of those things, though, that people loved Larry. Like, they took to Larry immediately. They started asking Larry questions. Larry works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. He doesn't get tired. He doesn't even have to count at night. He just works. He just answers people's questions whenever they have them. And so we taught Larry 100 questions in English, and he learned to answer those. And then people had questions in Spanish. Okay, all right. So we taught Larry Spanish. He could answer his 100 questions in Spanish. But here, like, Larry has a feature we didn't know about. Larry keeps track of the questions that people ask him that he doesn't know the answer to. And then he tells us the list of questions that he got that he couldn't answer. He communicates with us. Not verbally. It's like all in keyboards and stuff. And then he wanted to learn Vietnamese. So we taught him Vietnamese. He answers several hundred questions now. Larry's still live on the website because he's just answering questions. And when they're telling me all this, and I'm like, this is like some Space Odyssey stuff right here. This is like HAL 3000. But people really interact with that. AI is not that new. Larry's not that advanced. I mean, we carry around a lot more advanced AI in our pocket. We've got way more advanced AI than that at home. I mean, like you got some AI on here, right? It's like one of my friends. Hey, Siri, what do you know about Georgetown, Texas?
Georgetown is a city in Texas and the county seat of Williamson County, Texas, United States, with a population of 47,400 at the 2010 census and a population of 67,176 at the 2020 census. Should I keep going?
No, but thank you. You have to be polite. And they're like kids. We whisper. I don't say, hey, Siri. Not right now. Shh. And Alexa, she's aggressive. It's like she who shall not be spoken of. I mean, it's like you say her name and like you can't say it on the radio. So she goes crazy. These new terms frighten people. They don't really understand them, but I mean, you just get pretty comfortable with it. You're carrying it around in your pocket. Powerful. Artificial intelligence. But again, these new terms only describe tools that we're using to accomplish new tactics. We got other tools, margaritas to go, QR codes for the menus. Lots of tools came out of this pandemic out of necessity. But again, always remember they're there for the tactics. Like, what's a tactic, Brian? A tactic is this. Like right now, it makes sense we need to work from home. We'll get tools so we can work from home. We'll let people work from home. Now it makes sense for people to work from the office, so we're going to bring them in the office, we're going to get tools that way. See, this work from anywhere, that's a tactic. We deployed it because we had to. Now we're deploying different things. Everything's on a continuum. It's either moving up or down, or side to side, or a tilt-a-whirl. We got lots of new tactics. Here's what happens. And it happens really, really fast. Okay? People get more enamored with the tools than they do the tactics. And so they start inventing tactics to match the tools instead of finding the right tool to do the tactic that they want to do. Is everybody clear about that? It wasn't that clear to me when I said it. So I was hearing it for the first time myself. So we start trying to match what we're going to do to the tools we have to do it because the tool's cool. Or we want to impress people with our knowledge. Like, you know how long I had to practice talking to Siri before I came up here today? Because I wanted to impress you with my knowledge. Siri was shocked that I asked a real question and not play, more White Stripes or something. So, I mean, it's like, and the temptation's so great because the tools are coming fast and furious. Always remember, tactic first, tools second. Don't get led down the path by the tools. Did the tactics work? Yes, they did. The new tactics worked, the tools that came with them. The new terms describe them well. How do I know that? Well, because in February, which is the last month we have on record, we set our 4th consecutive record for the most number of Texans working for wages at any one time. All right? We are 250,000 jobs beyond the record we set in February 2020, which was the all-time record ever then. We've added 250,000 jobs in the last 4 months to the economy, over the record. It means we've added over 1 million jobs in the last 21 or 22 months. And these record-setting months are good. But there's things buried in the numbers that we've got to think about. Like the fact that the unemployment rate's still at 4.7%. The last time we saw employment numbers this high, the unemployment rate was 3.5%. Why do you think that is? Do you understand the unemployment rate? If you're on LinkedIn, go over to my LinkedIn page. There's a good video on unemployment rates that I put on there about 2 months ago. Check out that video on unemployment rates because it's going to reveal to you that it's merely one tool. It's not a tactic. Unemployment rate measures 1 week every year. But here, every month, 1 week every month to see who's working or who's not working. A higher unemployment rate we tend to think of as meaning people aren't working. But what it actually measures are the number of people who aren't working and will tell somebody that they're looking for a job. The somebody here is the Census Bureau. So if I'm not working and I tell somebody I'm looking for a job, you're counted as unemployment. If you're not working and you're not looking for a job, you're not counted in the unemployment rate. We have more people today saying that they're unemployed and looking for a job than we did 2 years ago. It's kind of interesting. Depends on where you look. We've got somewhere in the neighborhood of 750,000 jobs open in the state right now. We've got about, we actually have fewer people on unemployment benefits than we've had in a long, long time, which means we've just got people looking for a job. That's a good thing. I'll give you another little tidbit. I always find this one really interesting. We have 2 million people in the workforce today that were not in the workforce February 2020. And there are 2 million people who were in the workforce in February 2020 that are not in the workforce today. Some of them retired. We don't know where the rest of them are. Meaning, everything's on a continuum. People move out of entrepreneurship into wage jobs. They move out of wage jobs into entrepreneurship. The press has tried to create this narrative called the Great Resignation. But that's only part of the story. People are quitting to get another job. But if I'm an employer, I'm looking at this and I'm going, this isn't sustainable for me. I have a workforce that I need to maintain. And I agree. You do have a workforce that you need to maintain. And we're looking at all the jobs that are out there that we're trying to fill, and we're trying to figure out, like, what's the best way for us to help employers get positioned where they can get the talent that they need to run their business. And it occurred to us that 54% of the jobs in this state are middle-skilled jobs, meaning they require some type of credentials past high school, but they don't really require a college degree. You can have a college degree, but you don't actually have to have one. 54% of the jobs in the state. And that 46% of Texans have those credentials. So that's a 9% gap, or 9 basis points if you're a banker, gap in there, right? That's like 1.4 million jobs. And what we're finding is that people are either qualified for something else and are taking this job, or they're not quite qualified and they're trying to get this job. And there's still this gap of 9% between the number of jobs and the people who have the credentials for those jobs, and that's what employers are talking about. These are middle skills jobs. Do not misunderstand middle skill. These are high wage jobs. Have you hired somebody to do work at your house lately? These are lucrative jobs. And these are real businesses, and they're the backbones of communities like this one. Now, this chamber celebrates businesses large and small. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud to live in this community. Georgetown's an amazing community. My establishment of West Churchill Farms has way more to do with my HOA than anything about the city of Georgetown. And so this city is amazing because we celebrate jobs large and small, and we look for ways to make things happen. You look at what's going on the square today compared to 5 years ago. It's incomprehensible to people who haven't been here as long as I've been, at just how much energy and excitement's going on. But we got to get ahead of these middle skills jobs, and we got to have an opportunity for employers to plug into the talent that they've done. Now, the Workforce Commission, we take that kind of seriously. We've invested well over, at this point, $25 million and growing in ways to help employers strategize on these jobs, because when you're creating jobs at the rate we are in this state, we only graduate, I don't know how many Georgetown's going to graduate. The state graduates 325,000-ish students a year. But we've already created 250,000 jobs in the last 4 months over. Net gain, positive growth. The work absolutely continues. And it happens with organizations just like this one. So many wonderful opportunities for people to plug into this community and really be part of things that are going on here. And so many opportunities for us to really continue to welcome people into the business community in Georgetown and really keep this workforce is second to none. When you look at the performance of Central Texas, one of the speakers was talking about Central Texas and how blessed we are to live here. It's amazing when you look at it just from the numbers. When you look at it just from the numbers stamp, I thought Andy Webb had given him a picture of me to put up there, and that's what was going on. And does anybody know Andy Webb? If you know him like I do, you don't want to have your back to him, and I don't, because he's right there. But I was worried about this. Keep an eye on that, would you? Central Texas continues to grow at such a rapid rate, and so many opportunities that we're seeing around us. And I think in Williamson County, I think we understand what happens in Taylor happens here too, and what happens in here happens in Taylor and Hutto and towns that people didn't know the name of 6 months ago that everybody's going to know the name. I mean, people in South Korea know where these towns are now, and so it's pretty amazing all the growth that we're going to see in the area. And you look at what the leadership from this chamber and the city, both the elected officials and the people who actually do the work, like the city manager, all the people that come together to make sure that this happens. And it happens right here for a reason. Because we take care of people. We put the people first. See, the workforce is people. I can reduce them to numbers. There's 13.2 million of you. There's 29 plus million Texans. But you know what? It's Andy Webb, and it's Bryan Daniel. It's Will Peckham, and it's all the people that make this thing go round. That's why Central Texas is as exciting as it is. I mean, we've got high-performing suburbs. We can all be proud of Round Rock and Austin. They're doing a great job for us. When you have suburbs like that, it's hard for a city not to be successful. I'll hear about that before I get back. But it's true. And we come together in groups like this one to celebrate the victories and talk through the challenges and understand the obstacles, and we get it done. And for that, let's just finish by saying, you know what? Congratulations to all of you for being part of the good news story that guys like me get to go around and tell. Congratulations to you for being a place that people talk about, both in this country and across the world. And I guess congratulations to all of us for being in the great state of Texas where we can make this happen. Thanks so much for having me out today. It's been so much fun. Look forward to coming up down the future.